Oh, okay. Hello, my name's Fatima. I'm from Coin Street Nursery in Waterloo.
So tonight we're looking at what love looks like in early year settings. Oh, sorry, it should, yeah. So we've got the Education Endowment Foundation, of which is evidence informed practice. And so we're looking tonight at the approaches and practices for supporting personal, social, and emotional development, also called PSED. The EF states evidence consistently shows that supporting young children's PSED is effective. This theme seeks to foster children's personal, social, and emotional development. These approaches can underpin academic or cognitive dimensions of learning. PSED includes social and emotional learning and a child's ability to self regulate. PSED approaches might seek to improve children's emotional awareness and competence in the way they interact with peers, parents, and other adults. PSED approaches also seek to improve children's understanding and awareness of their bodies and their independence in terms of taking care of themselves. As such, PSED is closely linked to children's physical development. On the EEF, the PSED area has evidence on 5 different approaches: teaching awareness of emotions and feelings, teaching and modeling managing emotions and feelings, teaching and modeling social communication, teaching relationship skills, and teaching how to sustain positive relationships. Each of these 5 areas has video clip resources, and my favorite from each area are shown on the slide. We know technology is not going to allow us tonight to watch any of these videos live, but the link is there. You've had your slides, so we'd encourage you, tonight or another time, have a look at these videos. We will also be linking back to the EF evidence throughout the presentation. Right, so if you can see the screen, we've got some photos. So have a think. Are these photos what you would expect to see in a baby or toddler room or childminder setting? Because working with the youngest children in the early years requires practitioners to be hands-on. But we also need to follow your own settings, procedures, and policies on physical contact and intimate care. So if you have a look at these, in some settings, you might not actually be allowed to do some of it. So does your setting allow cuddles between an adult and a child? An internet search showed a nursery policy with a whole paragraph devoted to what they called the nursery lap sit. So the picture of the practitioner reading a book to 2 children would not be allowed in that nursery. For both of us, Fatima and myself, these examples of touch are good practice. However, did the child initiate the physical contact? Because it's not about meeting the needs of the practitioner wanting a cuddle. It's all about the child initiation. And then who does the child spend the most of their waking day with? Often our youngest children can spend 10 hours in a setting away from their parents or main caregivers. And then simply, how can a baby be burped or winded without being touched? Can you change a child's nappy or clothes without touching them? And what could the consequence be if a child seeks a cuddle and is constantly refused, and the psychological damage this could cause? Taken from a 2024 Ofsted inspection report graded outstanding, they seek out key staff for cuddles and relationships are clearly warm. That was for children under 3. Children who have attachment issues can have difficulty forming healthy relationships when they grow up. This may be because their experiences have taught them to believe that other people are unreliable or untrustworthy. So we've got the EYFS for both the revised versions from January for both the group and school-based providers and childminders. Love is mentioned once in literacy, It is crucial for children to develop a lifelong love of reading. But we can look further at what is love. Is it care, support, secure, safe, happy, partnership, included, strong, independent, sensitive, warm, comfortable, happiness, relationship, emotional well-being, supportive, positive, attachment, and friendship? All of those words have been taken directly from the statutory EYFS.
So the importance of PSED in the EYFS, it's absolutely crucial for children to be able to lead a healthy and happy life. And it's fundamental to their cognitive development and all their future learning. It underpins their personal development and with the important attachments and how they see the world and how it shapes their social world. They need positive, warm, strong relationships with adults to enable them to learn, for adults to model for them to what to do, for adults to support them to gain their independence, to help them sort out interactions, to manage their feelings, to make friendships and to cooperate and to resolve conflicts. These are the important things. This is PSED, and this is why it's so important for children throughout their lives.
Of development matters. So love, including loved and lovely, is mentioned 8 times, once for loved and well cared for, and the other 7 times about activities, e.g. babies, love, singing and music. In the Birth to 5 Matters non-statutory guidance, love is featured 15 times, including love for children, how much they are loved, and people they love. The term professional love is used along with having a love of learning. Okay, this is slightly more interactive, so feel free to use the chat box. So what's your comfort or transitional object today? So today when we were all sat at home, well, probably, you might not still be at work. You've probably got your mobile phone really close to you. It might contain photos of things you love, either people, animals, or places. And if it's not a smartphone, it's still a way of connecting with family and friends if you need to. Perhaps you're wearing a piece of jewelry with special significance. Maybe it was a birthday present or a wedding ring, or an item of clothing with a memory or feeling attached. You might have your special mug that you're using right now, which everybody knows at home is yours and they don't dare touch it. And maybe you've got your favorite space at the dining table or the side of the sofa. So have a think, what emotions would you feel right now if you were asked to put something personal to you into a special box and you'd be given it back later? Do young children have the same emotions as us? So I'm just trying to see if anything came in chat, if anyone wants to say what their real special item is today, and about what somebody's really special. Oh, yeah, so children do probably have the same emotions as us. So if you've got like your special mug or something, you probably got something special right now. Ooh, just trying to. So if we think about comfort objects and transitional objects, this is for children. So a comfort object or a transitional object is something that reminds a child of home and the people they love. It might also have a comforting smell, even though to us it looks grubby, stinks, and is in need of a wash. But is the object harming anybody if it's that muslin that's been dragged or blanket that's been dragged through the mud on the way to your setting? Does it pose a danger or a risk within the setting? If it's a stinky bit of cloth, probably not. The dummy sucking is the contentious issue. And as practitioners, we should all be promoting dummies out to talk and dummies just for sleep. However, as Fatima and I had a conversation while writing this, however, why do we see it as socially acceptable to suck a thumb, but not a dummy? If you remove a dummy on entry to the setting, do you also pull out the child's thumb? when for some children the act of sucking brings them comfort. Sigmund Freud has the oral stage of birth to 18 months, where babies and children, seek pleasure by putting objects in their mouths. Oral sensory seeking is very common, sucking on toys, chewing clothes, non-food objects in under twos, but after could be an indicator of developmental delays or special educational needs or disabilities. Fatima, your turn.
Yeah. So really what we're talking about is attachment, the attachment of children to their parents, to their caregivers. And we know that children, early as practitioners, we know that children have multiple attachments. And there is plenty of research evidence to show that. But when we're talking about attachment, we're talking about a psychological theory, which was first proposed by John Bowlby in the mid-20th century. And this theory suggests that we as humans are evolutionary primed to form attachments with others, to enable us to survive, to enable us to live and to relate to others, because we can't grow in isolation. So at different times in a child's life, attachments are formed in different ways. So if you think about the antenatal period before a child is born, we know that when a child is born, they know their mother's voice because they can hear their mother's voice. And we know that lots of people speak to their babies before they're born, and we know that this makes a difference to the child when they're born. But also we start to talk about the attachment that we have to the baby prior to birth. In the first 6 weeks of life, called pre-attachment, it looks as though on the surface it feels as though the baby isn't really making an attachment, but we are providing that nurturing environment and we are responsive to our babies. And this lays the foundation for secure attachment for life. In the second phase is called the indiscriminate phase, and that's from about 6 weeks to 6 to 8 months. And in this stage of development, a baby might start to show preference for their primary and secondary caregivers, often the mother and father. And for those children who do go into childcare very young, you will see that they will start to develop a preference for their key person. 6 to 8 months until 18 months to 2 years, it's called the discriminate then multiple. And during this period, a child begins to show strong attachment to their primary caregivers. Babies start to develop separation anxiety during this phase and become upset when their caregiver leaves, even for short periods of time. Growing bonds with other caregivers, for example, childcare, grandparents and childcare. And you'll see that, as early as practitioners, that you get to that point when you've got a new child coming in, they cry, and life is dreadfully stressful for them and for everybody else. And they start to develop that attachment to their key person. And then their key person goes to lunch and they start all over again. But it's in this phase, and then all of a sudden, look, they seem to settle and they seem to be calm and coping and knowing that they've got more than one more than one person they can rely on. And then from 18 months to 2 years onwards, this is when the children become less dependent on their primary caregiver, especially if they feel secure and confident that the caregiver will return and be responsive in their times of need. And that's as you see when the children do become independent and do start to find their feet and know about the world. Next slide.
Yeah.
Thanks. So when we're talking about attachment, we are referring to this theory, which was proposed, as we said, by Bowlby and furthered by Ainsworth. Ainsworth was Bowlby's student, and it's called the strange situation, and it's created in a laboratory where a baby is very briefly separated from their caregivers, and the reaction was observed. So when a child has a secure attachment, and that's for most people, in the strange situation looks like this: the child being able to actively explore the environment, the child becoming distressed on separation from that parent or carer, the child responding positively to the parent or carer when they return, and the child being weary of strangers, and the parent being consistently responsive to the child. And for most of us, that's what a secure attachment looks like. Next.
Fatima, do you want to say about the cultural?
Oh, yes, I do beg your pardon, of course, yes. But the thing we need to realise about this is that these experiments and this theory was derived from white middle class families or culture. We have to remember that different cultures have different may have different forms of attachment, or may have different manners of attachment, or may have different behaviors, but still produce a secure attachment. So there are many universal things about attachment, but culturally things may look a bit different, but children could still be securely attached. So an insecure or avoidant attachment, which is estimated to be around up to a quarter of the population, have this type of pattern. The child puts their attention on the toys in the absence of the parent or the carer. The child is avoidant of the parent or carer on reunion. The parent rejects the child's signals, especially for bodily contact, and there is channeling of distress away from the parent and carer interactions. The third scenario is the insecure ambivalent attachment, and it's thought to up to about 10% of the general population could be classified as this. And in this situation, the child protests on separation from parent or carer. The child's angry with the parent or carer on reunion, and there is an inconsistent parental response to the child's signals. And finally, we have the disorganized attachment. This pattern relating was classified in the early 1980s and describes about 14% of the general population. In these infants, you'll find that they have no strategy for separation. They displayed contradictory behaviours, and what we know is about 80% of children who are maltreated and neglected show signs of disorganised attachment. Hence, it's disorganised because there's nothing, no one knows what's happening.
So insecure caregiver-child relationships. The caregiver is usually sensitive and tuned in to the child's needs. They are able to provide care that is predictably loving, responsive, and consistent. Mary Ainsworth identified the 4 behaviours shown during stress or exploration. So we've got proximity maintenance, wanting to be near their primary caregiver. I'd call this the Velcro child. That child that you're just like, please, just a little gap between myself and you. So it might not be that they want to be held the whole time, but they just need that physical closeness to you all day long. The safe haven, returning to their primary caregiver for comfort and safety if they feel afraid or threatened. The secure base, treating their primary caregiver as a base of security from which they can explore the surrounding environment. The child feels safe in the knowledge that they can return to their secure base when needed. And separation distress, experiencing anxiety in the absence of their primary caregiver. They are upset when their caregiver leaves, but happy to see them and easily comforted when they return. So the separation distress especially is that one when you just nip out to go to the loo, or you have your lunch break or something, and the child's world has ended for those few minutes or half-hour break. Do you want to do this one, Fatima?
Okay, yeah. So this is just a diagram. This is just a nice little cartoon-style diagram to describe what Annette was telling us. So you provide the parent, the carer, or us. They provide this secure base, and the child goes off to explore the environment, but will look back to check that you're there and call you when they need you or go to you when they need you. You watch over them, you delight in them, you help them, and you welcome them, you protect them and you comfort them. But when you're distressed, you're a safe haven and they go back to you. So this is just what Annette was just describing to you, and it's kind of like a circle. I'm safe, I'm happy, I'm secure, I will try. As soon as I'm not sure or I'm unhappy, I'll go back to you for comfort. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this is how this fits in, how our attachment theory fits in to this hierarchy of needs, where you've got your basic needs, you've got your psychological needs, and you've got your self-fulfilling needs. But what you can see, if you're talking about very small children, children need to have their needs met, and we do that for them. Their psychological needs, we love them, we support them, we give them love and care. But when you get the fulfillment of needs, they are able to achieve their potential. They're able to go into the world, to learn confidently, to be independent, which is what we're looking for in children.
And then we've got the Leuven scales from Dr. Frere Lavers, and he created the Leuven scale to measure both the well-being and involvement, but we've got just the well-being on the screen now. If there is consistent low level of well-being and or involvement, it is likely a child's development will be threatened. So a child's well-being and involvement levels will vary throughout the day and week, especially when considering other factors such as tiredness and hunger. But where there are high levels of well-being and involvement, deep level learning will be taking place. So the EEF evidence states many successful interventions make use of discussions of stories or other illustrated texts to improve emotion, understanding, and knowledge of mental states. And these are just a selection of books which we chose to include. Some, such as Owl Babies, are accessible to even the youngest of children. It includes the emotions toddlers experience dealing with separation. Bill, the baby owl, says, "I want my mummy." And then after waiting and waiting and waiting some more with lots of reassurance from his siblings, Mummy Owl returns and they are reunited.
So how do we support children in their, to develop their emotional capacities and capabilities? So we have lots of kind of interventions that we do on a daily basis that help support children and helps them to label their emotions with very specific words, how to recognize facial expressions and what they mean, and to link events with emotional consequences. And this is why it's really important that we model positive emotional management to children, that we have the positive adult teacher child interactions lead to less externalized negative behavior towards others. In other words, children learn how to manage it when they've got these negative feelings or they want to behave in ways which are not socially acceptable, that they learn how to, through our interactions and through our talking and our explaining, they learn how to manage themselves. And these couple of pictures here, so from the EEF, they use this example of bricks. They've built a tower, someone comes and knocks it over. What's going to happen? The child who's built it's angry, it's going to be frustrated. But part of the role of the teacher is to explain how to manage those feelings and how to confront the other child for knocking down someone's tower for no reason, and how to say someone's making someone sad and what you do about it when you're sad. And it's a similar kind of thing with the kind of like bricks. It's about persevering and it's about keeping going, and if it happens the next time, knowing how to manage it, knowing what to do.
So the EEF also says activities explored include role play, puppets, routines, and stories. Several of these studies also reinforce the importance of teacher-child interactions about a strategy after it has been taught to encourage its successful application during incidents when children need to use the strategy.
So, and scaffolding peer interactions, the way we support children how to play together, how to manage their agreements and disagreements, to support their relationships, teaching them how to negotiate, how to collaborate, and those social interaction skills about cooperation, assertiveness, self-control, making a contribution, knowing when to contribute and when to stand back.
And the importance of teachers modeling positive relationships through teacher-child interactions to influence children's emotional competence and thus relationships with peers. And the adult explicitly teaching children the language of encouragement of you can do this.
And developing the social skills, such as thanking and term taking and self-calming routines, to help children have ways to manage and deal with their emotions, including solving conflicts, sharing and turn taking, saying thank you. Is something we probably do. We do this all the time, constantly. The children come in the morning, it's, hello, how are you? So we're modeling for them a social behavior. And they say hello back to you and they ask you how you are, for example. And how children, they have to reach that point where they can self-calm. An adult will be available if necessary, but they have to learn how to know how to do that for themselves. And as they grow, as they have positive experiences, they will learn how to do this.
And then remember, look after yourself and your own well-being as a practitioner. Working in a setting, a larger PVI setting, you probably have a key person, also called your line manager, or a mental health first aider, and other people to turn to. Working as a lone childminder, make sure you have a support network in place, whether these are your work colleagues, your family, your friends, or us at the hub. And just like to yourself right now, think about what makes you happy, one thing, and do you have a happy place that you can go and recharge your own batteries?